You're listening to the Rocky Mountain UFO Podcast with Doc Pearson.
I'd like to welcome everybody to this episode of the RMUFO Podcast, and today I'm talking to the legendary Billy Carson. Billy is a legend in the UFO community. He's an entrepreneur and a Renaissance man who owns multiple businesses. He's the director, writer, and star of the upcoming movie, The Black Knight Satellite Beyond the Signal. Billy Carson is also the best-selling author of the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. Billy is also an expert host on the new original streaming series by Gaia named Deep Space. The series is an exploration of the secret space program and the types of technologies being used along with their potential origins. Billy also is an expert on Gaia's original series, Ancient Civilizations. Mr. Carson earned a certificate of science with an emphasis on neuroscience at MIT, among his most notable achievements. Billy is also the CEO of First Class Space Agency based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Specifically, his space agency is involved in the research and development of alternative propulsion systems and zero-point energy devices. Billy is also the founder of Pantheon Elite Records. The label features 5 conscious music artists, including himself. Billy Carson is also the contributor to Thrive Global and is a registered international journalist. And along with all that, he's the founder of Bidden Knowledge TV. So Billy, like we were saying before, I don't know how you have enough time to do everything that you do, but I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast today. How's your day going?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to this, and it's going to be a great talk.
Yeah, it's going to be great. First to talk to you about, Billy, and I'm sure you've gotten this question many times, is how did you ever get interested in the UFO phenomenon, kind of the paranormal? You become an expert in that genre, and just kind of curious where you got your passion from. You can tell when anybody ever listens to an interview with you, whether you see you on TV, in film, or an interview on a podcast or a radio program, you can tell you got a lot of passion and you know what you're talking about. Just kind of curious where that came from.
Question. I was born in Queens, New York, but moved to Florida at a very early age, moved down in 1977 to Miami. And we lived in Opelika, really close to the Opelika Airport, which is a small airport. Actually, that same airport was used in Bad Boys 2, I believe, with
Will Smith.
Lawrence and Will Smith. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They had a scene there. But the airport used to, the small planes would fly over my house. So I would stand there in my backyard. This is the 70s. There's no video games. There's no tablets to play on, no all day cartoons. You got to go outside and play. And I used to just go outside and watch the planes go over the backyard. And one day, this object came across, and instead of it taking minutes, to go from point A to point B, it cleared the horizon in seconds. And It wasn't an airplane from my point of view as a kid. It didn't have a fuselage. It didn't have a tail, cockpit, all these things that I knew that a plane would have. It was more like an elongated object, not fully like a cigar shape, but like an oval, and it was glowing metal, and it went across the sky literally in seconds. And then it came back and it stopped. But when it came back, it was much lower. And then it just went out the way it came in. And I ran around. I ran in the house. I was like, I can't believe what I just saw. The word UFO didn't exist in my vocabulary. Alien didn't exist yet in my vocabulary. Flying saucer didn't even exist. I just knew what I saw wasn't a plane. The next day, I went to the school, my elementary school, Rainbow Park Elementary. And I went to the library and I got all the Encyclopedia Britannicas on aerospace. And I started looking and researching aerospace from that exact moment and have never stopped since. Wow. Delta wing, swept wing. I went to the SR-71 Blackbird, believe it or not, back then they already had that information out. I started looking into all different types of ballistics, and nothing I saw was what happened in my backyard. So it just took me on this path.
That's crazy. So you're about, 10 years old when that happened, you said? Is that right?
I know, it was 7.
7. Wow. And that's become a career path for you, which is amazing. Another thing I wanted to talk about during our interview was the Forbidden Knowledge that you can get on, platforms. Can you talk about how that going? And I think it's great that you're doing it. History Channel and a few others does, dabble in UFO stuff every once in a while, but I think it's great that you have an entire network just dedicated to that. So could you talk about that a little bit?
I noticed that there was a thirst for this kind of information early on. And so before Netflix even existed, I had already created Forbidden Knowledge TV. But it was the wrong time. And so the bandwidth fees for streaming videos off my own servers was through the roof. I mean, back then I was paying like $1,400 a month for bandwidth, and that was only on 1 million views of a few videos. I kept going, if I expand this number and this thing really grows, I'm going to be spending 30, 40 grand a month just on streaming. So I turned it off and I paused it, but I kept paying for my name. I kept paying for the name every year, the domain name. And then Netflix came, and then Amazon Prime, and then Hulu. And I said, okay, this stuff is pretty well established now. These prices have had to gone down. When I rechecked again, it was a lot more competitive and more conducive to making a profit. So then I relaunched for Bidden Knowledge TV just now 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, actually. And it was a huge success. And I just started off with putting a lot of UFO conferences on there, lectures and workshops that people have done from all around the world that nobody's ever seen because they could never afford to go to these things. And then I got some contributions of content from some other researchers and people, and get building. And then eventually got into making enough revenue to produce our own exclusive content for the platform. And now we're producing super high quality content. And we have over 6,000 shows total on the entire platform now.
Yes, the quality is amazing. You guys have done a great job with that. It's right up there with all the network stuff that you see. And it's definitely worth checking it out. And it's extremely affordable as the time, while we're recording this. It's $7.77 a month, right? Anybody can afford that. I paid more than that when I went to Starbucks the last time for just one latte. So
yes, 25 cents a day. I mean, if you can't afford 25 cents a day to invest in your own knowledge and wisdom and research, then you really probably not, you really don't want it. It's bad. I think that's a reasonable number. And we found a number we thought that everyone could afford easily without feeling hurt, depending on no matter what the economy was doing. And something they can sustain. And so that's the number we came with.
No, that's a great number. And you also have a lot of good personal development content on there too, I think. So it's not, along with the UFO content, there's some great stuff to just kind of help people become better people, I think, which I think that's, especially in this day and age, is super important. A lot of people are overstressed, and you guys have got some things on there that people can watch, relaxation type stuff, meditation, all kinds of other things too. I think that's really important. So thanks for doing that. One of the things I'm very excited about is your new documentary called The Black Knight Satellite Beyond the Signal. That is about the Black Knight satellite. First time I ever heard Knight satellite was Jacques Vallée. Everybody knows him from, he was the guy from Close Encounters, the French guy that they kind of patterned after. And he's been a UFO legend, has probably written over 20 or 30 books over the last 20, 30 years. He was the first one that ever mentioned that I recall. So how did you learn about the end? How were you able to create this documentary? I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, great question. So in around 2012, I started researching anomalies coming down from the Mars rovers, actually plural, the Spirit rover, Opportunity rover. And I started seeing anomalies on Mars. And so I started digging into the space probe data, satellite data. And the more I dug into a lot of these space agencies' websites, I came across something interesting. Somebody talking on a forum about the Black Knight satellite. And I'm like, the Black Knight satellite, that's a pretty interesting name. So I started researching and digging into that. And I actually was able to find the actual direct links to the anomaly on nasa.gov under the space junk section. I said, this doesn't look like junk to me.
Right.
And when I finally realized I was able to analyze the size of this thing, it's massive. And I said, wow, there's something here. So little by little, I began to research and dig into it. And it wasn't overnight. It took a few months of really digging deep to get all the little data points together. I wrote this huge blog about it back then. It was years ago. And it just kept lingering in my mind. Like, there's so much more to this. People don't even talk about it. They don't even exist. I wonder if I should, do something else with this, like make it into a real production. And then one day, about maybe 4 years ago, I stumbled across some amazing information when I was researching the ancient Sumerian cuneiform tablets and the cylinder scrolls. And I found a connection, or at least what I thought would be a connection to the Black Knight in ancient texts. And I said, wait a minute. Oh, my goodness. This is mind-blowing. If this object, this all-seeing eye of Enlil, that can see everything on Earth at any given moment and hear everything on Earth, and knows all the geography and the topography and everything else, you would need a satellite in a polar orbit, and the Black Knight is in a polar orbit. And I said, this could be it. And then I found it in the cylinder scroll, and I said, this thing is linked. This is possibly a link. So that started my whole journey on another year of research. And then about 3 years ago, I said, I have to make this into a documentary and bring this to the world. People need to see this and hear this. So I began putting together this all-star cast of researchers, everybody from astrophysicists, scientists, quantum physicists, UFO researchers, radio hosts that dabble into the paranormal and UFOs, MUFON, field researchers and spiritual people and people that are experts in ancient civilizations, and I got them all together. And it took some time because of the sickness that swept the planet slowed me down, or it had been done already.
Right.
But anyway, I still got it done. I didn't give up. And it's an amazing story, and people are going to really resonate with this information, and it's going to make them scratch their heads and open some eyes.
Well, and what's really amazing too, Billy, is you've got an all-star lineup of guests there. If you look at your movie poster, it's like a who's who of people in the UFO space, and like you said, science and everything. Yeah. Can you talk about some of the guests that you have? I know Richard Dolan, Jimmy Church, and some people like that, but you've got just an all-star lineup. I'd love to hear about how they got involved. Yeah,
Alex Teplish, he's an author. He wrote a book about the Anunnaki, which became a bestseller. And he's a real wizard, and he understands the depth of the story in an artistic way. So he made this illustrated novel, which is done very well. But he's really well versed in the tablets. And so he's a good friend of mine. And I said, hey, I'd love to have you in this documentary. He couldn't wait. Obviously, he was like, yes, please, I'd love to be in it. So Alex Teplish, Jamie Janover, he is a quantum physicist. He works with Nassim Haramein, if you know who that is.
Right.
Yeah. So Nassim and him, they work together at their institute that they have. And me and him, or him and I should say, had been following each other for years on social media, had met briefly one time. And I just reached out to him through a direct message and said, hey, man, I'd like to bring the perspective of a scientist to talk about some quantum physics and some astrophysics. And he was well in. And then Roderick Martin, who is he's been with MUFON for years. He's a field researcher with MUFON. He's on a lot of now Travel Channel and Discovery Channel shows that just came out. And he's been on my podcast before. He couldn't wait to get in. I was able to find Duncan Lunan. Duncan Lunan is the journalist that wrote the Time magazine article in 1960 about the Black Knight and was one of the original people to decode the signal coming from it, which led us to understand that it was saying that it was from the Boötes constellation. I thought he might have been gone, but I dug and found him. And we tracked him down. I couldn't get to him personally because of the sickness, but I had somebody on that side of the pond go knock on his door.
That's
and he was reluctant, but he agreed to sit down and talk for a little while. So we got him in the documentary, and he signed all the releases and everything. So it was great. Wow. Chris Maroney researches Mars anomalies. He's one of the top researchers in the world on Mars anomalies. And he's part of my United Family of Anomaly Hunter group. And he's an integral part of the documentary because of his analysis of the blanket theory. And he debunks the debunking of the Black Knight. And then Eric Von Daniken, the granddaddy of them all. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Eric Von Daniken, very good friend of mine. Of course, Chariots of the God author, 88 million copies sold worldwide in every language. But again, a very good friend of mine. I've been at workshops, conferences, and lectures with him. And he jumped right on. And Randy Weitenheimer, who I didn't personally know before this, my producer knew him. He's a quantum physicist, which we had to bring some real science to this. Mark D'Antonio, who I didn't know as well, but through my producer, we got him. He's an astrophysicist that does stuff for the Navy and the Marines. Jimmy Church, everybody knows Jimmy, iHeartRadio, JimmyChurchRadio.com. He's a big time person in the space of UFO, UAPs, and paranormal. And Freddie Silva, who's a expert on ancient civilizations. He's in a lot of shows. He's in the show that I'm in with Gaia Ancient Civilizations, and he's been on dozens and dozens of shows. Some of his documentaries are on my TV platform. 4 of his exclusive documentaries we actually own the rights to. They're on Bidden Knowledge TV, and he gives a perspective from the ancient side. And then we have Thomas Jensen, who was a researcher of anomalies. and also paranormal. Richard Dolan, who, that name itself, he's a best-selling author. He's an expert in UAPs, UFOs, very credible source there. Sonia Grace, who's a indigenous Native American, who gave the spiritual aspect or spiritual side from her perspective. And Steve Mera, a researcher out of the UK, who's well known for researching UFO and UAP activity and also paranormal. Johnny Enoch, an expert in ancient civilizations, who's been on many Gaia shows as well as Ancient Civilizations with me. I just got 2 more shows from him, exclusive for Bidden Knowledge TV series shows that are going up in a couple of months. Patrick Jackson, who's an expert in paranormal, and through my producer, we met him. And then, of course, you have me. So it's a big cast.
I'm sure it would be hard to probably get everybody in that short amount of time for a movie, right? So you probably had a lot of fun in the editing, trying to make sure you got everything in there that you needed to get in there. And there's probably enough information for a part 2, too, I would think.
Oh, yeah, there's way more. Oh, man, this could be 4 hours, 6
right.
hours. It's just too much. But you got to give your best hour and a half.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I can't wait to see it. I don't want to give away any spoilers. I'm sure a lot of people have the same question. Is that satellite still in orbit, or did somebody take it down, or did a government try to take it down, or just kind of curious if it's still floating around up there?
I believe it's still there. And one of the reasons why they would not try to blow it up or remove it is because they do not know its defense capabilities. And so if you have an object, it's logical, if you're military and there's an object that's monitoring and orbiting for thousands of years, and you've identified it, you have identified the signal and NSA documents, which we cover in the documentary, you try to communicate with it, but you wouldn't try to destroy it because you don't know if that will transmit back to home base, bring the cavalry. And we're not ready for that.
Right.
The only weapons we have on this planet are the ones that we have pointed at ourselves.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's probably a monitoring device. Like you said, we send probes to Mars and all the other planets. So you can see another civilization doing that. Plus, when we started popping nukes on this planet, there was a huge increase in UFO phenomena, right? I think we're on the 75th anniversary of the famous photo that was taken in Washington. Kenneth Arnold, sorry.
Yeah, when they flew over the White House.
Yep, exactly. And then they buzzed the White House. So they might be monitoring us to see what are we doing if we start, doing stupid stuff like popping nukes and doing really dumb things to each other. That might be a red flag to them that maybe they need to come here and intercede or something, right?
Right. Well, I definitely would want to monitor if I was an advanced race. We do the same thing as alien, the jungle. We'll create what we call a hide. We'll blend in with the background. We'll have our cameras. We'll hide cameras in their dens and in their living places, and we'll spy on them without them knowing about it. And then we even alien abduct the animals by shooting them with a dart, knocking them out, and we take them away. We probe their bodies, and then we take samples out of their bodies, just like the gray aliens supposedly do. And then we tag them and put an alien, thing. We insert an alien device into them so we can track them, right? And we put an implant in them, and then we release them back to the wild. They have their lost time. They're delusional. They don't know where they are. Where time went by. They get themselves back into their pride or whatever it is that they're going to, and then we still watch and track them ongoing to see what's happening. So we're doing that to animals on Earth, but above us at a higher level, somebody's doing the same thing to us.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense, especially when you read about the accounts of abductions, that it's exactly like you said. They're it's like they're drugged, and then they have lost time, and then they show up on a rock by a creek somewhere and don't know how they got there, right? Just like a animal that was tracked and tagged the same way. So that totally makes sense. I'm glad that they didn't blow it out of the sky yet.
It just doesn't make any sense because you just don't know if that thing can send a signal via a quantum entangled signal, which means it could travel faster than the speed of light. The information, the transmission can get back to home base instantly, and you blow it up, it's too late. It can see the missile or whatever it is coming, the projectile coming. It'll transmit back to home base. Hey, we got a problem. And then all of a sudden we got a real problem.
So you were saying people picked up the signal on Earth. Is that sending an RF signal? Because they were picking it up in the 60s. Were they just visually catching it, or were they catching radio waves off of it?
Radio waves. ham radio operators were collecting the signal and decoding it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I can tell you this, it gave up the location of Epsilon Boötis, but where it was in the sky 13,000 years ago.
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Anything else exciting you can tell us about the movie?
Well, I mean, when they see how I linked the ancient civilizations and who actually owns this constellation, it's going to blow their minds. Because yes, when I say a person owns it, yes, owned it. There are people that own planets, people that own solar systems, people that own constellations. And when they find out who it is, their mind's going to be blown.
So people on Earth are alien races?
These alien people, these alien races, these advanced Atlantean beings that have this intergalactic civilization that they have. One of the planets in that civilization used to be Earth. Now Earth is more like an abandoned seed colony.
Oh, right. Okay. That makes sense. Jeez. Well, definitely can't wait to watch the movie. So I'm excited. I wanted to wrap around and talk a little bit about Egypt, because you said I know you've done different trips to Egypt and some of the other sites. Like I've been to Tulum down in Mexico, and some of those sites are just amazing when you see them in person. What have you learned from some of those ancient sites that have helped you with your current UFO knowledge and what you're learning today?
What it's helped me with is helped me to understand that the biggest link is that the civilizations that we're looking at were global, but not only global. I made that link early on that they were a global civilization, but that they were also interplanetary. Because as I started to look at the way these structures were built, I've been to Tulum, Teotihuacan, Chichen Itza, all down into Yucatan, down into South America, down into Peru, and of course all the way throughout Africa and Cambodia. I mean, I've been all over the world, and all these places have structures that look like the same type of anomalies that we see on Mars. Why is this? So we're talking about an interplanetary civilization, a civilization that wasn't just on Earth. And what I've also been able to learn from going around the world and seeing these sites is that Atlantis was just the one that they're talking about, that they think is the whole thing, the ring city. That was just one capital. That was a small piece of Atlantis. Atlantis was the entire planet. So no matter where you went on Earth, you were on Atlantis. I'm on Atlantis right now. Atlantis is beneath our feet. And so it's a real amazing story.
I'm sure you remember Richard Hoagland. I don't know if he's still around, but he used to talk a lot about that type of thing where there were civilizations on Mars, where the moon is not what people think it is. And there are actual like battle marks or scars on a lot of these planets in our solar system from what he believed was like an intergalactic war back in the day. Do you believe in that? And do you think that Richard Hoagland was on the right track with what he was talking about?
I believe in 1,000%. I've done the research myself now. I've analyzed a lot of these moonlets and a lot of these moons that orbit Jupiter and Saturn. And just looking at them, you can see that some of them appear to be artificial. Even looking at our moon, you can look at the ground penetrating radar data from usgs.gov, and it's clear as day. There's no Photoshop needed to take away contrast or anything. You just download the USGS deep penetrating radar imagery website and look at the moon. You can see beneath the surface, there's steel beams down there. What in the world are those beams doing beneath the surface? And when you analyze the moon's surface, you see that those craters, they all appear to be just about the same depth.
Right.
And a lot of them don't have any ejector around their edge of the ring. Where's the ejector? Where did it go? There's no ejector. And then there's nothing coming in angles. You mean to tell me every single rock that hit the moon hit it straight on and made a perfect circle, nothing hit and slid into its place? So there's something strange with all those craters up there.
Right. Oh, and this is common knowledge. You can find this on NASA websites. They say when they landed on the moon that it rang like a bell, like it was hollow or something. There's tons of documentation about that, where that doesn't make sense if it's a planetary body that it would ring or have a hollow noise to it. So there's definitely something going on with the moon. I don't know what it is, but do you think the government probably has people up there now, working underground or something? Or
there's a lot going on. Well, if you look at the Clementine mission that went to the moon, it was a top secret military mission that's been declassified. They sent a low lunar orbiting satellite to the moon. And this satellite was named Clementine. And when I saw the name, I initially said, oh man, this thing never came back. I guarantee you, because the song Clementine, oh my darling Clementine, you were lost and gone forever, old country song.
Right.
So I said, man, this thing, I'm aging myself now.
Right.
I said, this thing is gone. When I looked at it and dug into the data, guess what? It never came back. It crashed into something on the dark side of the moon and never returned. However, it did send back about 20 gigs of images, which are available on nasa.gov. And when I downloaded the images, my mind said, I'm talking about incredible anomalies, things that look like vehicles on the surface, things that look like structures on the surface. And it's all up there. And some things that look, a thing that looks like a partially destroyed structure. So it's pretty interesting, man. It's wild stuff. And so the government knows what's going on up there. There is every single day, there's a laser transmission directed at the moon to a dish that we left behind on one of the moon missions. And they're transmitting data back and forth to and from the moon. It's publicly available information, not what they're saying, but at least that they are transmitting this information back and forth. They won't tell you what they're saying, though. But why are they communicating with the moon? Why are you sending data transmission to the moon via laser daily? So there's some kind of communication going on. In the ancient Sumerian tablets, these Anunnaki people, they went to the moon and they stayed there for a little while. Not all of them, but some of them went there. They had to put on their eagle's mask. That's that helmet that makes them look like they have an eagle's face. That's a helmet. It's not really a bird's face. And they put it on because the atmosphere was thin. And they went to the moon and they were casing it out, but they stayed there for quite some time before they returned because they had been building a civilization there. I mean, we don't know. It doesn't get too deep into exactly what they were doing up there, but they did, according to the ancient Sumerian tablets, they visited the moon.
You could definitely see that there's something going on. I always thought it was interesting that we had the Hubble telescope. We put it out in space. Why don't we turn another one on the moon and give us high definition pictures of what's going on the moon? Like we have Google Earth, right? Our technology is there. We could do that pretty easily. And I don't know why we haven't done that yet, other than it seems like they're hiding something, just
they don't want to
look at it critically.
Yeah. So Apollo 10 went around the moon on the dark side of the moon. Well, you're out of comms range because obviously the moon is between you and the Earth. So you're out of comms range for a period of time. But during the time they were out of comms range, somebody hacked into their comms on the dark side of the moon, and they all were freaking out. And that's on the released black box audio of the Apollo 10 that you can download right on NASA.gov. They didn't even redact it. They're freaking out because something hacked into their comms and is playing this sound into their comms. It almost sounded like music, and it was coming from the moon's surface.
That's crazy. And there was a reference to Santa Claus, I remember too, or something like that on one of them, that right before they went dark or they took the audio offline, like this was supposed to be code word for like an anomaly or UFO or something. And there was 3 objects they saw. I've interviewed Edgar Mitchell back in the day, and he said, he used to say some interesting things about that too. So yeah, there's definitely some anomalies for sure. I also wanted to talk a little bit, Billy, about Antarctica, just because it seems to be a lot in the news lately. What are your thoughts on what's going on down there, and why is that why do we have to be these government leaders like John Kerry that will travel to Antarctica? That doesn't make sense to me. Why do you have people, with the U.S. government making trips to Antarctica, which according to them is just a big wasteland, like the movie The Thing?
Yeah. It's not a wasteland. There's a lot of world leaders have gone to Antarctica. So Antarctica was in a different location geologically on the Earth. And so we know this because one of the main reasons they're down there is because as the ice melts, all this ancient civilization fully intact is appearing. And that's why when they find animals down there, they take the animals and do a little autopsy. When they cut them open, they have undigested food in their stomach. That means they were flash frozen. So what that means is that Antarctica is sitting on a tectonic plate that was probably closer to the equator, right? And then those tectonic plates, one of them slipped, and when it slipped, it moved rapidly into the position that it's at now. And that rapid movement would create a partial global flood because of the sheer mass moving across that amount of water. And that amount of water flood coming back over the top of the land as it's in a much colder location would then freeze. And so now you've got frozen water turned into a gigantic ice block on top of an entire civilization, probably within 48 hours, gone, just like that. And so now, we go down there. Well, obviously the Germans went down there first and found some stuff and started working on these Hannibal craft. We go down there and snoop around and we get attacked. Now, this is like a place of interest. So now we go back down there. If you look at Google Earth now, you'll find that there's bases all around this wide opening, about 35-meter wide opening in Antarctica. And deep, far behind it to the right, there's a gigantic pyramid. But you can see all the major bases of all the different countries on Earth. The G7 countries are there, except for one, which is the Rockefeller Foundation. They're all labeled. You can clearly see it. It's a no-war zone. You can't fight there, but it is protected by military, so nobody else can come in. And I want to know, what are they researching? Now, Buzz Aldrin went there a few years ago, and he went down there into that hole with these research teams. He came back and got on Twitter while he was still there and typed in something about we're facing the ultimate evil, okay? And that tweet blew up instantly, became millions of screen shares and copies and retweets. And then he took it down, or they probably forced him to take it down. And then they said, Buzz Aldrin is feeling sick. We're going to fly him home. And they sent him home. But meanwhile, everybody had already copied that tweet. It was too late. Something is going on down there that scared the living daylights out of him.
Right. So what do you think it is? Do you think that there's like an alien base there, old artifacts, or do you think it's advanced technology that we're using or we discovered and we're kind of reverse engineering down there?
Yeah, I think we're reverse engineering ancient technology and that we're getting, but I think we're getting help from these beings that used to be here. And how I feel that is because I went to training class with Major Ed Dames. I took 3 classes with him in remote viewing. And each class was about 16 hours. In one of the classes, towards the end of the class, he disclosed to me, his own words, that there's a base in Antarctica where these some of these people live, these Anunnaki people or these Atlantean people live, he said, and they can come and go as they please. And that the military and the U.S. government and some other world governments are well aware of it and are in contact with them. That was his statement, not mine. So I believe that they probably are down there, maybe negotiating, working out deals, maybe some advanced weaponry, whatever it is. It's something that scared the heck out of Buzz, and definitely something that's well worth for them to keep completely silent and quiet for the rest of the global population.
Yeah, well, it's definitely an area of interest, and it will be interesting if any footage comes out of there, or if we can, see aircraft. I know what you're talking about with the Nazi stories where they went, there's a stories where they went down there and tried to kind of, engage the Nazis, and they had some pretty advanced spacecraft that kind of obliterated everything the U.S. had back in the 50s after World War II, right? Yeah.
Admiral Byrd, he took a whole fleet down there and turned around and went home with his tail between his legs. They killed quite a few American, Navymen, and they won pretty easily. He said in an interview afterwards, he said in a press release, not a press release, but a press session or whatever. He said that we're facing a new enemy, one that could fly from pole to pole. Which is interesting because the Black Knight flies from pole to pole.
If you read any of the To the Stars Academy stuff, one of their books has a whole big section about how they engaged the Nazis down there in Antarctica. So, and, a lot of people that founded that have got some military ties. So you'd think that they would know what they're talking about, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So before we run out of time here, Billy, I'd like to just touch bases and see, what do you have in the upcoming future? I know you've got a lot of exciting things business-wise going on. There's also, I'm sure, a lot of great movie content and content on your channel and other things coming up. So can you give our audience a kind of a taste of what's on your horizon?
A lot of great stuff going on right now. For Bidden Knowledge Inc. is not just an Instagram account. It's a lot more than that if you didn't know. It's a stream network with over 6,000 shows on it right now. And the quality of the content is increasing on a daily basis, producing full-blown documentaries, movies. We have 10 new complete series, TV series, exclusive to Forbidden Knowledge. Their original series are in post-editing right now. They're already filmed. A commitment to do 2 big documentaries a year and 1 movie a year, as well as 10 to 12 new TV series every single year. So that's a huge commitment that we're taking on. We've been raising funds through our Reg CF with the SEC in round 1. Our company valuation came in at 20 million. Within 90 days, it had grown from our subscription base and all the other revenue that had been pulled in from our book publishing and our e-commerce. It went to $30 million, and the share price went up to $1.50, which is what it is right now. There's only about 48 hours to buy shares for the general public, as we are now made the official announcement just the other day. The press release went out that we are reaching for NASDAQ first quarter of 2021 will be a publicly traded company, and anybody who owns shares, their shares will roll like offering. So we're pretty excited. A lot of big things on the horizon for Forbidden Knowledge. Great opportunities. We have our own social media app, Unite the 99, social media app, so you can post content with no algorithm. Looking forward to just continue to put out great content, videos, and just raising awareness on the planet.
Yeah, and you've made it very easy for people to enjoy that content too, because I think everybody's got an Apple TV or a Fire Stick, all the Roku, all the different streaming platforms. You guys pretty much have them all covered. So it's as easy as just going into the App Store and looking up Forbidden Knowledge TV and downloading the app and then signing up. It's great. I love it. It's
really good. We'll be on Samsung TVs very soon as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so you guys will be everywhere. So, and I know young people today, Billy, I won't give away my age, but people my son's age and younger, they consume content differently than we did. We grew up watching TV, the major networks and going there, and, you had to sit down and watch, Cheers or whatever at a certain time, or, Bonanza or Star Trek. It was all, you had to be there when it showed, but now everybody likes to consume the content when it works for them. So you've done a great job of making it available when people want to look at it, which is kind of around their own schedule, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important too, because some of the stuff we have up there is, I did a 36-hour Egyptian mystery school on the TV network, which is the #1 viewed series. I think it's 40 episodes total. But nobody can just, so you have time to take it, watch a little bit. You can rewatch where you left off automatically. It knows where you left off. And you can even download the episodes into your device, your tablet, your phone, whatever you have, in case you're traveling on an airplane with no Wi-Fi, or you're in a remote area where there's no Wi-Fi or poor signal, you can still watch the shows. So it's pretty cool. It's just like a Netflix app, but it's all conscious.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome. And you're going back to Egypt in October, right?
Yeah, we're taking 66 people with us in October of this year. Going to be a big, huge forbidden tour of Egypt. I can't wait. Mind-blowing information there. We're going to change some people's lives. Go into some hidden places that nobody knows about and can hardly get into, and it'll be a tour. I'll have private access to a lot of the megaliths, the temples, the pyramids, and so forth. There'll be no tourists around; it'll be just us. And I'm going to get access to the brand new museum that's not even open to the public yet. We'll be able to go in, just my group alone, a week before it even opens.
Well, we'd love to have you on the show if you want to do a live from Egypt. I think that'd be super. I think Egypt, for I don't know what reason, is embedded consciousness. When I was a little kid, I used to draw little pyramids the whole time when I was bored at school. And I don't even know why I did it. I just would always do it. And I think there's something about that. You were talking about Tulum and the other Egyptian sites. Yeah. When you're there in person, there is an energy that you feel that it taps into something with most people. And that's why I think it's cool that you're going there in person. People experience it. They're usually not the same afterwards, right?
No, they're not the same. You just can't be when you stand next to those megaliths and you see it with your own eyes, because there's no photo that can do any justice. Your own eye, and being there is like, it's 10 times better. And the energy, like you said, you can feel the energy. And, when you stand next to the Great Pyramid, there's so much mass there with those 2 million blocks. Time actually slows down. You experience time dilation. So it's microns of a second, but time slows down when you're standing next to the Great Pyramid. Just knowing that you're time traveling, just standing next to this thing, it's incredible.
Yeah, that's crazy. And how people are crazy to think that years ago, ancient people were able to align these to constellations, and all the mathematics involved in that. There had to be, superior knowledge of the solar system and everything, because just random people putting a pyramid together would not get all that math and everything right that you'd need to do to even get a structure like that built and get it to still be where it is now, and all the different holes that you can look through and see Orion and everything like that. There's just some crazy stuff there that people don't realize, I think.
Yeah. Incredible alignments. And they use meters, by the way. And people go, well, how can that be? Because meters didn't come out until, no, meters are ancient. We only everything we have now is a rediscovery. So meters have been around. Matter of fact, they discovered Proto-Sumerian cuneiform tablets depicting a rudimentary metric system long before anything was here.
Wow. I did not know that. That's crazy. Jeez, well, that's wild. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, Billy. Thank you very much for being on the podcast today. Make sure to check out the Black Knight satellite Beyond the Signal.
It'll be on Bidden Knowledge the following Monday. So probably maybe Monday or Tuesday. So by June 7th or 8th, it'll be available exclusively on forbiddenknowledge.tv with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.tv, or the short version, 4bk.tv will take you right to it.
Great. And we'll put links in the show notes too, so everybody can link to that. So thanks for your time today, Billy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're listening to the Rocky Mountain UFO Podcast with Doc Pearson.